with a very special guest. Today's podcast is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk through the journey of this individual in terms of how they're breaking into tech, maybe some of the experiences that they had, but also we're going to talk about, the challenges, the push through, the emotional roller coasters when it comes to this current job market, whether it's layoffs, whether it's downsizing, all the different things that you typically may see or experience, but not a lot of people talk about it on the internet within their content, and especially not in the professional sense. But without further ado, I want to introduce our guest, Mr. Xavier Monroe.
Nigel, I super grateful to be here. Like I said, man, I'm looking forward to it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So, if you can, man, maybe just give us a quick snapshot of who you are, where you're from, and maybe your background when it comes to just working in tech.
Okay. So my background, I would say I'm still kind of getting my feet wet in tech, but I've had enough experience to where I'm starting to get a lay of the land. Just a few accomplishments. I've done the Google IT support through Coursera. I've done my CompTIA A plus, my Security Plus, my AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner. Currently
Nice.
working towards my Solutions Architect Associate and my CCNA.
Dope. Dope.
Um,
So,
most
what was
most of my background is in networking and cloud.
networking? What made you get into that in the first place? Because I know, like, me growing up, I never heard of that. So, like, what was your kind of breakthrough experience?
So I started more so like I've always been interested in tech. I was taking apart computers, since I was a kid. I had an iPod Touch second gen, like way throwback. Um, I
Yeah.
remember I busted the screen on it and I didn't want, my parents to find out. So I ended up going on eBay, found the parts, bada bing, bada boom. Okay, now I'm starting to see I can do this. Okay, so now
Right.
I'm doing this for other kids at school. And then, as I continued, I did it in high school.
Wow. That's
Um,
powerful. That's powerful. And so, when we're thinking about the job market today, you're currently in the process of getting a new job, correct?
yes, sir. Um, Currently looking for anything, junior network admin, systems administrator, anything, cloud support associate, even a knock or a sock. Just um, really looking for the next stepping stone in my career.
Okay. I mean, like, a lot of content you see online is like, yo, it's easy to break into tech. Like, it just takes me a couple of weeks. And, we both know I went through a job search process a couple of times last year, that it's not always one that's simple. And two, things do take time. What would you say to somebody that's also in the same position as you, that's maybe putting in the work every day, but, they aren't necessarily getting that offer as soon as they want it?
I would just say, keep going, keep going, keep going. As cliche as it sounds, you cannot give up. I always have this picture in mind. I'm not sure if you've seen the guy with the pickaxe. He's going through the tunnel looking for the diamonds. He's
Oh, yeah,
almost
yeah, the
there.
cartoon.
Almost there.
I like
Um,
that.
but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And even with this podcast, I'm looking at this as this might be my next big thing. This
For
this
sure.
might be the thing that finally puts me out there.
And really just from how we're even connected, right? You just reached out, was like, hey, look, I want to get on the pod. I want to talk about, things that I've been experiencing, what I'm learning, my situation. And for sure, we have a lot of hiring managers, recruiters, a lot of other great professionals that are listening today. And I really won't be surprised if something fruitful can come out of this conversation.
That would be absolutely amazing.
For sure, for sure. Okay. I mean, because it's like, on the internet, you just see everyone like, yo, I'm so proud to announce, I'm taking my talents here, or I got this new job, or I'm so excited to update LinkedIn with my new acceptance of my job offer. But you don't see a lot of content around the time that it takes to get a new job, or even the steps that's required, when you're through this process. What are you focused on right now when it comes to your job search? Is there anything you're working on in particular? Like, how are you passing the time by outside of, maybe just putting in those interviews? I mean, putting in those applications, excuse me.
Right now, I've been focusing on building. So, a lot of people can get caught up in the job search, get caught up in, the nuances of things, but I'm looking to actually build and create things that are impactful. um, I would say right here recently I've been majorly focusing on building on AWS. For the past
Nice.
5 days I have done a at least one project every single day. So
Okay.
I've been in the AWS console, I've been working with EC2 instances, I've been working with VPCs, just actually getting in, getting your hands dirty, and doing the work. I've been working out CCNA labs, creating collapse core architectures, creating, the three-tier architecture, just getting in and getting familiar with the technologies. That way, whenever my moment does come, I'm prepared and I can be an
Right.
asset to whatever team it is that I'm joining.
I love that. I feel like a lot of people don't do that enough. I like the term create your own experience. You don't always have to wait to get a job, an internship, or someone to kind of give you work. A lot of these platforms are pretty inexpensive or they have free versions where you can kind of go in and create a mini project, kind of build out certain instances, or even potentially helping out a community member, volunteer. I'm not saying you got to start $1 million business, but that experience, you can go leverage that in the market compared to this sitting around just putting in those applications. And what kind of inspired you to like, yo, let me actually go build something? What was that mindset about?
I'm not gonna lie to you. Whenever I booked the slot for your podcast, I was like, yeah, now I gotta go show something. So,
Okay.
that kind of sparked the idea, what can I actually show off?
Mm,
Cause don't get me wrong, I've been doing labs. Um, I set up a HP. Technically, it's an Aruba switch. There's some kind of discourse between what the branding is, but again, like I said, I've implemented this into my own home network. Um,
mm,
I've set up the collapse core architecture with the switch. I set up the access switch, connecting them by lags because my current setup doesn't support Ether channel. So again, just finding the nuances in networking.
mm. And now for the people that are watching that maybe have heard about cloud or maybe even considering it, like how would you even describe it at a basic level? And maybe what are some things that you wish you knew about the industry before kind of taking this time now?
Um, to answer your first question, I would say to think about cloud in its most simplistic form, think of it as a computer inside of a computer. That's
Mm,
quite literally all it is. Um, Getting to the second question, one thing that I wish that somebody probably told me, or a question that other people probably have, there are non-technical roles inside of cloud. So you
true,
don't necessarily have to be the techiest person in the room in order to be in cloud. You,
true,
IT, cloud, cybersecurity, what have you. We have GRC roles all over the place.
true,
Not
true.
enough people talk about GRC.
Mm. What is GRC?
That would be governance. I forget exactly what the acronym is, but
It's all good. We can look it up
but
real quick. I say that because we using a lot of acronyms, and the people that are listening may be, yo, what the heck are they talking about?
yeah. But I do know it is specifically governance, making sure that you're following the guidelines, um, making sure that things are inside of a certain standard. You have things like NIST, OWASP, things like that, and for companies to maintain compliance. Getting back to like HIPAA, PII, PHI, things like that.
Gotcha. And so I just looked it up. Governance, like you mentioned, risk management and compliance. You mentioned PII and HIPAA for the audience that's listening. We're really talking about just different compliance laws, personal information laws, and the managing of data. And to your point, I didn't forget, man. I worked at Google Cloud as an account executive, right? And that was my first time working in cloud. It was a brand new world to me. Before that, I didn't know much. So you're actually one of those individuals who's a little bit more hands-on, it seems like, and is actually, building out products or having a deeper understanding, which then you could take that and go shop in the market. And there's a lot of different roles. Let me ask you this question. For you and your experience, what type of roles make sense based off of the things that you know now?
Um, like I said, currently where I'm at, I feel like that would be getting into like network administrator or junior network admin. Um, like I said, things like systems administrator. Um, I could definitely see like cloud support associate, maybe getting into like a solutions architect role. Um, but I feel like going up the road of networking in terms of like knock sock, like I said, junior network admin, things like that, maybe even a data center technician.
Okay. And what's, I guess, out of those that you listed a few, like what's the one that you want to go for, right? Because one thing I like to encourage people is you want to have an address. If somebody asks, if you ask somebody for directions in a car, first thing they're gonna ask for is, yo, where you going? You don't want to give them 10 different cities. So what's your number one if you had to pick one?
Network admin.
No, and why?
um I genuinely enjoyed the network. A lot of people like to overlook the network, but realistically, everything rides on the network.
True.
If you don't have network access, you don't have cloud applications, you don't have the internet, you don't have anything. Nothing runs without the network. Um, and as crazy as it sounds, I kind of like IP addresses.
Mm. And what got you into that? Because like, yeah, not too many people even know about IP addresses in general, outside of like maybe if they're trying to get like a VPN or something like that. I don't
Exactly.
know.
Um, I would say it probably got sparked while I was studying for my certified cloud practitioner. Because again, during I worked on the AWS Skill Builders website. That's how I learned the material for the exam. Um,
Nice.
Whenever you're going through Skill Builder, they're teaching you about the VPCs and they're teaching you about the cloud networking. So once I started to see, okay, networking not only plays a role on prem, but networking plays a role through the whole cycle. Okay, this might be something that I should look into. Um, and then that got me started down the road between Net Plus versus CCNA, and ultimately I've landed on CCNA.
Wow. Wow. And you mentioned on-prem. Can you tell? I mean, I know what that is, but could you maybe break that down to the audience?
Yes, sir. So you have on-prem data centers. So think of like you have a brick and mortar physical location, specifically for like your data center or wherever your business operations are. If that data is housed, in a physical location, that is on-prem or on premises.
Right.
Versus if you have um, a cloud setup, all of your stuff is hosted either within the cloud, within your own VPC, which is a virtual private cloud, um, or we have hybrid applications, which they utilize some cloud, but they utilize on-prem as well, and use it to make a mesh network.
I love that. I love that. It's very deep, but simple at the same time, especially once you have those experiences. When you think about the tech world, like, is there any like innovations or I guess maybe even bold predictions that you're anticipating over? I mean, we all see AI taking over, cloud's a big thing, but like, what else do you see kind of happening on top of that?
Um, I'll tell you, like I tell everybody else, anything further than 6 months out is a super, super, super speculation. Again, AI is moving at a parabolic rate. Think of it like you're driving a car down a foggy road. You
Right.
might can see, a little bit, maybe like 20, 30 feet in front of you, but anything past that, no, you can't see. It's all fog. So I would say the same thing applies, to the AI space. Um, we can make certain predictions. Um, I will say one of the biggest hot takes right now is Open AI and how they may have overvalued their company. Sam Altman pretty much came out the other day and said, they're looking to reduce their spending.
Hmm.
So he came out with that report, and it basically confirmed a lot of things that people have been thinking in terms of, oh, AI is overpriced, and there's a lot of things speculation wise in that area.
So what makes you say that though? Like, of course, people are making the shift to Claude. There is certain fees that are allocated when you're running the AI, but what makes you feel like it's, an over allocation or overpriced?
Um, I wouldn't necessarily say that those are my personal sentiments, but again, like I said, I've seen online, I've seen the discourse, I've seen the news whenever Sam came out and he said what he said. A lot of the comments were, oh, this is overpriced, this is overvalued, getting into the topic of coming back and doing a reevaluation for the company. And again, getting into like the paperwork side of things. What is their cash flow? What are their
Yeah,
books look like? Are you
true.
are you are you running it at the fundamentals of business?
Mm. Now, do they
Like,
say, is this true? Like they say like AI is bad for the environment. Like, is that true? Like in terms
man,
of,
what? So I watched a few documentaries actually. Whether it's The Verge or there's another channel on YouTube, but again, environmental pollution, noise pollution. There's a lot of things that come with data centers. Like, don't get me wrong, I love tech, I love AI, I love the innovations, but I wish that we would do things the right way. They talk about having closed loop systems for the water. That way, they're not being wasteful. But at the same time, not everybody is implementing closed loop solutions. um, I would say one of the main things is the electricity. Getting into like the power draw, 1.5 gigawatt power factories. This is getting into a lot of power. Um, and my thing is, they're not trying to offset it with renewable sources. My thing is, why not build out the data centers with super efficient solar panels on top of them? Again, I understand that there are certain drawbacks to solar, but at the same time, like I said, using solar, wind, even hydroelectric to offset the power that is needed in order to run these centers 24/7. Keep that in mind. This is not 9 to 5. This is not 8 to 8. This is 24/7 around the clock. Um, and again, going back to the noise pollution, these are 50,000, 100,000 square foot campuses plus, and they're filled with nothing but network equipment. So, like I said earlier, getting to me, I run an HP 2920, and just that switch alone, like the noise is crazy. When I plug it in,
wow.
all you hear is the fans. All you hear is the
Yeah,
fans.
it's like, yo, like they saying they just taking up energy. There's warehouse, like data warehouses, and that's crazy. Because people don't think about that. They're just like asking ChatGPT for relationship advice.
Man, they're going to Chat GPT for therapy. Now, again,
Wow.
that's not to, get on
Right.
anybody's
It's
case, but at the same time, like, we have real interpersonal needs. And don't get
yeah.
me wrong, Chat GPT is a great resource, but I don't think that there's any greater resource than the actual human interaction.
Gotcha.
We have people
I mean,
who go to school for these things. They spend and dedicate so much of their lives in order to be able to help us. And I feel like we shouldn't really slam the door on them just because we have a tool that's a little bit more accessible in our pocket.
I think that's a good point. I think now it's more about like how do we mix this in with the advancement of just overall society. But we're too late, right? It's all everyone and even me just being international, like being in different cultures. It don't matter what the language is, people are utilizing AI, they can spot it. They may not have a full understanding like you of cloud, but at the surface level, society is starting to kind of implement these new changes that we're seeing. So it's quite fascinating. But as we conclude, I just really want to maybe open up the floor if there's any final words that you want to showcase, anything about maybe some things you learned, maybe words of encouragement, any final words that you want to leave.
Um, I would say, maybe some words of encouragement because going back to the main point of this episode is, helping people get started in tech. Um, I would say if you have an interest in tech, it starts with a Google search. I see a lot of people, asking questions in the comments, how do I get started with this? Where do I start with this? It starts with a Google search. If you're interested in something, again, this search can start out very broad, and then the more that you learn, the more that you pick up, then you can start to narrow your search. But
Yep.
again, it can just start with how do I get started in IT? How do I get started in tech? What are some relevant certifications within IT, that might give me a leg up? Um, Me personally, a piece of advice that I would give, I sat and took my A plus exam. I would not recommend the next person to do it.
Mm,
Learn the material, but do not take the exam. I feel
mm,
like the exam is A, overpriced. So B, you would be wasting your money and not really getting the ROI that you're looking for. Um, you can sit and take the A plus, but realistically, the only thing that you're going to qualify for is help desk. I mean, as much as I feel like the help desk is a very necessary and super helpful role in IT, don't get stuck there.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
I would say don't close yourself off to just help desk opportunities. Now, on the flip side, if you were to sit and take your Security Plus, I feel like Security Plus would give you more of a leg up and more of a ROI because that opens the door for you to qualify for GovTech roles. So even if you don't want to go like the security clearance route, if you were to go on clearance jobs, get a public trust, and you have a Security Plus, I mean, you're pretty much starting out at like 55, 60 off a rip.
Mm. I love that.
Um,
I love that. I appreciate that, and it's so good to have you on the episode. We're definitely going to go ahead and continue this conversation. For those folks that are watching, hope that you took down notes. If you got a LinkedIn, hit them up, Xavier Monroe. If there's any other social sites you want to shout out, feel free. But other than that, we really appreciate you, and I'm excited for the next time for us when we chop it up again.
Man, we're gonna have to do this again soon because I don't get to have enough of these conversations.
Yep. I mean, they're here. I have these conversations every day, and that's why I do these podcasts because I'm like, I want people to hear them. But I'm always around, and I would encourage you, just like anybody else that's listening, to have these conversations with amongst your friends. If you feel like you're not having them amongst your friends enough, because people on LinkedIn, we can nerd out, we can tech out, and there's people always down to connect. You just have to outreach, and you may get some no's. You probably will get ghosted, but somebody hit you back. And it's best is not even about a job. Like, yo, bro, I saw you did this in your career. Hey, sis, saw you did that. Like, let's talk. I'm fascinated. Like, I would love to learn. Boom. Now we networking. So I'm gonna see you in the next one. Peace. Let's do it.